My dear Bagginses and Buffins.
By the blood of our people, are your lands kept safe?
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
By all that you hold dear, this good earth.
There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting.
Welcome back, everyone. We are, of course, talking about The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 4, Eldest. And, oh boy, this episode, I think, even if you've been a hater since day one of this show, I think you're going to want to watch this episode. We're going to get into it, but this episode should at least bring some, even if you've been hating everything up till now, I think there's going to be things in this episode that bring you some joy, and we'll get to them. Yeah, so I guess we don't kick off right away to those parts, though. We do start with a little prologue to our main Elven conflict here, where Galadriel and Elrond are discussing the group that's going to be traveling to Eregion to try and figure out what's going on with Sauron and why they haven't heard back from Eregion, what's going on there.
Yeah, so they want to take an archer and 2 swordsmen.
Yeah. And I don't know how important that is. It's more about we're starting to see the rift here that like Galadriel still thinks she should be in charge. She was, after all, the commander of the Northern armies, and she feels like this is beneath her to be just like a second-in-commander, just a regular soldier to Elrond's little squadron here. I still don't understand this conflict. She's lucky that she's not thrown out, to be honest, so
Yeah.
she should just take this with, like, some grace. I mean, these elves, I don't know when they start learning to have that respectability and elegance to them, but it's not here yet. Like, they still kind of like stomp around and pout around, and I don't really understand why she's treating this situation this way. I will say, we've talked about this, I do think partly why this season seems better for us is there's less of her character in it and calling the shots.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here we see exactly why we don't like that. I really don't like this character. She's being rude to Elrond, who is, he has no he doesn't even have to take her if he doesn't want to. He is in full control of this. He is trying to offer an olive branch, a peace treaty here to say, look, we've had our differences about these rings. Let's try and be friends here. And she's still being a grump about it. Yeah, I just don't understand how are we supposed to like this character? She's just being mean to Elrond for no reason.
Yeah.
And one other thing I'll say, because it happens quickly here in this scene, it happened in the last episode, and it'll happen again later on. The map portions of this show, they're not wide enough where you can only see like a small portion of the map.
You don't really know where you are.
It's really confusing, especially when I'm trying to explain where it is in relation to the original trilogy to the people that are more casual fans. Even I sometimes don't know where I am and have to like look it up. Like, I just wish they would zoom out, then I would know where everything is in the future. Like, I would know where like Rivendell is, for example, in reference to certain other towns and whatnot on this map. But they won't zoom out for me. Like, it happens so quick here where they show us where we are. They show us Lindon, but it's on this it's in this obscure like corner, and I just wish it would zoom out more and give us a fuller context for what we're looking at. That's just a little pet peeve of mine, though. So yeah, I don't think there's a ton more to discuss other than this kind of bickering between these elves, and then we do cut to the stranger, who I think the stranger and the Harfoots.
Did we? I mean, just the order of my notes. I thought that they went to that broken bridge first.
Oh, that's true. They do come to this broken bridge, and they have to make
Yeah.
a decision, and that's sort of what I meant. It's like it's just kind of like a bickering thing.
Yeah.
She's like, we have to go this other way because that way's not safe, and then Elrond's like, the reason you're saying that is because you're using the ring power, and I don't trust the ring power. So they kind of have this moment.
So he chooses to go south despite Galadriel saying, well, that's going to be a trap.
That's right. So yeah, so you're right. From the audience perspective, we are starting to realize that this ring is it seems not tainted. It does seem like it's helpful, but Elrond doesn't know that and has no reason to believe that yet. So I see why he's not trusting it, and I also
Yeah.
see why.
I think Galadriel does have her like snob moment where she's like, you know what? I'm just here because I don't want you guys to die.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly my point. Like, that's so awful. Why are we doing this, Galadriel? Like, have you learned nothing? Have you learned nothing that Lord Elrond just said? So yeah, it's making it really hard to like her, even though she's taking a step back from the main character. Like, don't throw that. She throws that in just because she's pouting, and I don't like it. That shouldn't.
I want to
be
go
allowed.
back, but I'm here because I don't want you guys to die.
Exactly. But yeah, so then we head over to the stranger, and this is post tornado, where he conjured up a sandstorm tornado thing, and it flung the Harfoots and the assassins all over the place, and now he's kind of wandering around looking for the Harfoots, and
Yeah.
he finds some foliage and some goats, and we hear a little bit of singing, humming, and I don't know how else to say this, so I guess I'll just say it.
We are Tom Bombadil
we
song.
are introduced immediately, if you know the lore at all. If you not even know the lore, if you've read the books at all, you know who this is.
Even if you only got a little bit and decided this book's unreadable.
Yeah, you'd at least probably got to this guy. You got to Tom Bombadil, and I guess I just got to get this out of the way. I think this is the best you can get in Tom Bombadil. I honestly do. I think Roy Keener here, the actor, I really like this actor. He's doing a great job here, as well as he always does. He's nailing this part. I actually think it's
when they
written
offered
well.
I saw the after interview, and he said that he didn't even know who Tom Bombadil was when the part was offered to him, but and he told his wife that, or his partner, I don't know if they're married or not, but that he got the role of Tom Bombadom or something. And she's like, you need Tom Bombadil? That's my favorite character. And then that's why he took the role. It's because it was her favorite character.
You know what?
Then he read the books after that. He got the offer.
Okay, you know what? That eerily sounds similar to how Viggo got the part of Aragorn, right? So
Well, Gimli, the actor who plays Gimli, never read the books either. He said
Right.
he tried to read them, he couldn't. And then when he got the part, he's like, I guess I better read it now.
hopefully Sean Bean had already read them, because if he read the books and he thought he was just gonna be like this poor punching bag of a character that everyone's gonna be mean to. I mean, in some ways they are still a little bit mean to him, but not as harsh as the books are. But I will say, okay, so here, like, this is the best you're ever gonna get on screen of a Tom Bombadil, because it's not over the top. It's the right level that
Yeah.
anyone who read the books knew prior to seeing him on screen what was about to happen here, and that tells you something about this kind of character and this kind of story. The fact that you knew based on the humming alone what was coming, I think that's pretty powerful writing in terms of Tolkien's lore, and then in terms of how they wrote this scene playing out. And he's doing it beautifully. So in that regard, big praise. Tom Bombadil, they're doing it they're doing it well. They're doing good service to it. I still think this is so hard for me to talk about with the casual viewers, because they're like, who the hell is this guy, right? Like they've not read the books, they've seen the original trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. They don't know who this guy is, and so they're like, who is this guy? What's going on with this guy? Why is he a powerful wizard? Is he like Saruman or something? It's really difficult for me to talk about Tom Bombadil in this story, because nobody seems to know what this guy is, right? Like that's like, people argue about this on YouTube all the time about whether or not he's God. He's some sort of manifestation of gods. He was like the original attempt at bringing order to Middle Earth, like all sorts of stuff. So I still feel it's a mistake to include him at all in terms of just world building and lore. But honestly, I think this show is the best spot for him, because already the show is kind of off the lore path anyway, and it's more fan fiction, and so you can have these kind of crazier characters. So in a way, to all the haters out there, I actually think the fact that this show is breaking lore allows Tom Bombadil to come in here and not feel out of place and weird. Imagine if this was more of a Game of Thrones, or a more like hard and fast, like rules-based fantasy show where you were following politics, or you were following these characters, and it was a little bit more intense on the realism aspect, at least in certain circumstances. I think Tom Bombadil, it doesn't work. But here, because we're already dealing with all sorts of craziness. Oh, and also a nod to while we're talking about, a nod to the tree that sucks in.
Yep.
Gandalf. They call him what? Old Man Ironwood, I think.
Yeah, Ironwood.
Instead of Old Man Willow from the books. Anyway, love that. I think it was well done as well. So yeah, all in all, I think if you're not happy with the show, at least watch this episode, because I do think it's going to be hard to be really mad at the show in this particular episode. Yes, there's going to be lore issues, like why the heck is Tom Bombadil all the way over there? They kind of talk about it a little bit, but yes, there's going to be some lore issues. But you're going to get to see things that some fans have been begging for over 20 years, which is a live action.
I think it's fine that he's over there. Yeah,
I think it's fine too.
He's a wanderer. He can go wherever he wants.
Exactly. And he argues, like, he talks about how he's been. I mean, we're jumping ahead, but he talks about how he's been here before. He came out here. Now it's all desert, and he kind of was just wandering around trying to figure out what's going on. And the Harfoots, again, I'm liking these Harfoots more and more. They're not as in your face as they were before. I do think the show's listening, guys. So, the criticism is sometimes over the top, but give it time to self-correct, right? Like, everyone yelled at them about a bunch of stuff from season 1. Let them have time to try to reposition it and course correct some of these characters, some of these storylines. You can't do it overnight unless you just kill off a character, or kill off, like never show another scene, like another setting on screen. So the Harfoots are starting to grow on me. I still find some of this stuff odd, but I mean, hobbits are odd too, right? Like, hobbits have their own quirks, just not as intense as the ones we meet here, it seems. And this is where we end up, we follow our Harfoots, our Nori and Poppy.
Yeah, they're okay. They didn't die in the
and
tornado.
You and I talked about that. We're not really happy with their explanation there. I actually think it would have been better for Tom Bombadil to have saved them, and maybe then he brings them here, or like tells them about this place and they go there, and then Gandalf comes. You know what I mean? Like, I think that makes more sense to show just how powerful Tom is, because again, it's hard to explain this character, but he doesn't really do a ton here that make him overpowered, which is why I said it's like a good it's a good representation of him and it's not too over the top. But they could at least talk about how he did save the Harfoots, which would in turn pay homage to the Tom Bombadil of the books saving the hobbits twice, actually. He saves them from Old Man Willow and from the Barrow Wights. We'll
now I finally know what a Barrow Wight is.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So, first we're into this village of hobbits, but they don't call themselves hobbits yet. They're still.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, we skipped over a little stuff. So they see the horseman in the distance.
Oh,
so
right.
they jump to escape his view, and they bump into this other hobbit-like thing called Merrimack.
Yeah.
He says, "I'm nobody. Doesn't anybody call you somebody?" And Merrimack reluctantly takes them to his village after they threaten to turn him in for stealing water. And they say they're not Harfoots, they're Stores, which is a type of hobbit, right?
Yeah.
Those are the water hobbits that Smeagol was part of, right?
Oh yeah. No, I think that's right. Okay, yeah.
The river folk.
Yeah, that's right. They're one of the 3 breeds of hobbits. And they were I guess they were like the closest to resemble men, like humans, I think, is what. Like they're a little bit taller than the other hobbits, it seems. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we meet the Stores.
And they talk about their friend that's with them, the wizard friend, and then they have kind of another Gandalf hint, where they say, "Is he an elf? No, he's too big to be elf. So he's a great big grand elf." Sounds like Gandalf.
Yeah. No,
they're having a lot of fun with this.
Hey, you were the one that caught when they were talking about the sticks or something like that, right? And they were saying
the
Gand. I didn't even put that together. I was just like, why do they keep coming up with ridiculous names for this guy? He's clearly Gandalf. I didn't even catch it. So yeah, you caught that, and yeah, now it's pretty damn obvious what's going on here. Now, could they still switch it up on us? Yes. I don't think they will, but they could.
I mean, maybe he's the... I don't know. I mean, it'd be kind of strange because the Blue Wizards are supposed to be friends, aren't they?
Yeah.
But like maybe the first Dark Wizard is a Blue Wizard, and then Gandalf's the second Blue Wizard coming in to like straighten him out.
Yeah, talks him back into the eyes of good. So we'll get there too. Like there's a lot of stuff in here that people should like, even if it's not fully on board with the lore. But yeah, so we got these Stores here.
Could be Radagast too, maybe.
It could be. I have a feeling it either has to be Gandalf or a Blue Wizard, because so Gandalf is he's one that does seem to have these more direct tasks on dealing with evil within Middle-earth. The other ones seem to be more like they're just like keeping tabs on various elements of Middle-earth, but Gandalf himself seems like his tasks are more direct. That's why it makes sense for him to be Gandalf here. And then with the Blue Wizards, because we don't know a ton about them, but Tolkien did change the lore later on, it could be one of them in an earlier problem in Middle-earth. Maybe the Blue Wizards were there dealing with this stuff, and then Gandalf comes later. So I can see it either way. I do think with all these kind of name hints,
but they did. I mean, I don't know if we got to that part yet, but they do kind of. That may have been last episode. I'm not sure. But they do say that this Dark Wizard actually is an Astari. He's not just some.
It's in this episode. It's in this episode.
He's not just some sorcerer.
So yeah, so we know there is another Astari here. So the mystery man, the stranger, is not the first, which actually kind of in a way unbreaks some of the lore problems people had with this being the quote-unquote first. Obviously, the timing of it might not work out lore-wise, but in terms of the actual progression of how many Istari are on Middle-earth right now, we don't actually know. We now know of at least one other. Well, we'll get to that. We'll know of one other. There might be more for all we know, right? Like, we don't know how many have arrived already.
Yeah.
And so in terms of, like, the timing of when each one comes in sequence, this might not be breaking lore at all. Now, it does break lore in terms of the exact dates, but that's for another day, I think.
Well, yeah, they're not
Yeah.
even trying to
No.
maintain a timeline.
No. So yeah, we got the stewards, and so we have one of these fun situations that we have in other Lord of the Rings movies, which is our Harfoot friends tell these stewards that they're looking for their wizard friend, because they have that fun play on words that you mentioned, and then they mention that he's a wizard, and the stewards only know of the dark wizard, and so it gets the Harfoots in trouble.
Yeah.
And so they get tied up, and then we cut to the dark wizard. And
Right. The rider guy's still alive.
Yep.
He's like, oh, that storm killed my men.
Yeah, or two of my it killed two of my men, and there's only like two of us left or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they should have just all lived. Maybe that would be better.
Yeah, like the sandstorm wasn't even that bad.
I mean, yeah, we got thrown around, but we're all okay. It was a little annoying, but
Yeah. So okay. So this is where, all right. So the Dark Wizard, he now says, after he's been told, like, you know, some of his men died or whatever, he's like, okay, you're either very brave or very foolish or something like that. And he says, here's what we're gonna do. I'll go after the Istari, and your sole concern are the Harfoots. Well, I don't understand why he cares about the Harfoots at all. Okay? Because his whole point with the Harfoots initially was to get at the Istari, the Gandalf. But if he's gonna just go to Gandalf because he knows where he is, he's by the Hermit. That's what they call Tom Bombadil. So if this whole problem is just dealing with Gandalf, who cares about the Harfoots? Why does he now assign his assassins to track down these Harfoots? I just don't understand, like, that
maybe
point.
he wants to kidnap them, then as like a way to get leverage later. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of too. Is that like his whole thing was, when I deal with Gandalf or the Istari, I need something to force him to join me or to do what I say. And if I have these Harfoots, I'll be able to threaten them, and he'll have to do it. Maybe that's what he's saying. It seemed like he was just gonna go fight him. Like, I'll go fight Gandalf 1v1. You go kill the Harfoots, and I'm just like, who cares about the Harfoots at this point? Like, if I'm a dark wizard, like this, like the whole awesome planning and thought process for Tolkien when he wrote the original trilogy, or the original book, I should say, which became a trilogy, was that like Sauron and Saruman underestimated the importance of the hobbits, and I think, you know, that's always one I like to have.
You're right. Yeah. They actually, it would be kind of fun if they said the Harfoots don't even matter, and then it comes to bite them later. 'Cause
Exactly.
They overlooked the hobbits.
Exactly. So I like that. Yeah. So I guess we cut back to Gandalf. He's still in the tree. Old man Ironwood. And Tom Bombadil he shows his. I mean, like, here's the thing. To casual fans, this does nothing, which is why I think it was so cool of how they decided to portray Tom Bombadil. Because casual fans, when they watch this, they're like, who's this weird hermit, like, touching this tree in a weird manner? That's Tom Bombadil. Like, that's what he does. And this is really powerful stuff. Like, this is purely for the fans, which is why I think people need to give this show a little less heck when it comes to like discussing the lore. They're giving you some really good moments here, and this is one of them where he saves Gandalf from the tree. And this is also where we get the reveal, which I don't think they should have done. Now, I'm curious where you stand, because you have a much better grasp on like being able to both view it from a hardcore fan perspective and a casual. I just have the hardcore mode set all the time, and then casuals will come up to me and be like, what the hell's that? Or like, that doesn't make any sense, and then I'll have to explain it. Here, I think they shouldn't have had this whole like, zoom in, I'm Tom Bombadil. You know what I mean? They should have just left it with him like not answering it or something, and just kind of like singing around and like singing along and like dancing around. Instead, they kind of zoom in and say, folks around here, folks used to call me Tom Bombadil or something like that. I feel like they could have left that out, because we all know who it is, and the casual fans don't need to know who it is. You know what I mean? Like that, it does nothing for anybody, because to casuals, Tom Bombadil's nothing. They've never seen him before, and they don't understand his power yet. And for us, we already know. We knew the second we heard the singing who this was. So I think I would have preferred to just leave it and let us all just know. Like, we all know. We're all in on the joke, or on the point here. So that's my thing. Sure. And then we do get a Goldberry.
We hear a voice,
a voice cameo, and he even says the name Goldberry, so you get that in here, which is great. Which I think maybe would have been, this might be the place to have Tom Bombadil get mentioned, because then it's one where it's not like in your face, like, I'm Tom Bombadil. It's everyone now knows that's Tom Bombadil, and then the casual fans can go, oh, this guy must be Tom Bombadil. His name's Tom Bombadil, and they don't know what that means yet. I feel like that's a little bit more impactful than the forced, like, better pay attention because this is Tom Bombadil, and then it kind of zooms on his face like that. But anyway, I that's just like my own little storytelling technique I think they should have used. But I do like these scenes. Like, you know how much I have been against showing Tom Bombadil, and I think this was really well done. It almost turned me. I do think, though, if this show was a bit more in keeping with the style of the original trilogy, I think this scene, while it's okay to some degree, still would feel out of place if we ever do see Tom's true power and true like mystery surrounding this character. I do think those would be problematic for like the original trilogy, for example. I think it takes away from it. So that's my only caution about always wanting the lore to be exact, because I think as cool as this character is for a lot of fans, it can take away from the overarching story and have him be the sole focus a little too much, if you ask me. But honestly, the scene's awesome. Like, he's lighting this candle, and Tom is. Here's the cool thing about Tom, and I will say there are some fun stuff. He is a magic user that has fun with the magic. Most magic users are a bit serious. He has fun with it, so in lore, it kind of makes sense that he would light one candle at a time, and then some other ones would just get lit along the way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, most magic users would just either light them all with magic or light them all one at a time because, magic is too dangerous to be, messed around with. Whereas Tom, because he almost embodies the magic, he's lighting one candle as other ones around him get lit up. That's just kind of fun, and I really like that visual that they chose to use here. And even this whole like gag where he's got the piece of paper on the knife and he flicks it and it becomes bread. Really fun stuff. I don't know how I feel about the dialogue as much, because here in this scene here, after Gandalf has had a bath and he's being fed, Tom seems a bit too serious from what I remember. You know what I mean? Like, he gets a little too Like,
He's
oh,
he's less jolly and goofy. As he
yeah.
is.
So
So-
as much as I think this is a perfect representation, he's not over the top. It does make me question, like, okay, because he's more serious, wouldn't that mean this particular rendition of Tom would play more of an impactful role on assisting our main characters, our protagonists? Because here it makes even less sense for him not to intervene, because he understands the dangers at hand. Like, he's upset about the darkness befalling the world, and yet that's not, he's just a wanderer, right? He's not, that's not his, it's not his job to solve it. It makes less sense because of the tone that this character brings to this conversation. So that is my one complaint with. I mean, obviously, I complain about using Tom Bombadil at all, but that's my one complaint with even how they've done him is, as much as I like seeing him a bit more realistic, it then begs the question: why is he not helping more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, I don't know if you have anything else to say about Tom here. Before we move on, we do have like a whole like "Can you teach me" scene that we can kind of
Well,
talk
yeah.
about.
Well, I mean, there's that fun bit about calling the stars newcomers,
True.
and how he's old, eldest, and he's seen a lot of changes over the years.
Yep. Hence the title of this episode, Eldest. What does that mean?
And-
Yeah, Casual's asking me, what the heck does that mean? What do you mean he was here before anything? Yeah, I know, it's confusing.
Well, it's not really explained. That's part of the mystery.
Yeah, that's the mystery.
And that's when you have the name of the tree revealed, Old Man Ironwood.
Yep.
And Gandalf says he was just trying to get a branch so he could have a staff, because he thought the stars were leading him to a staff.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he said, "Oh, this must be it." So that's what prompted him to try to pull this branch off the tree, and then get swallowed by the tree. And Tom says, "Well, you should have asked."
Yeah.
And then Gandalf asks if Tom could teach him magic. And then Tom says Gandalf isn't worthy of a staff yet. And then Gandalf says he thinks he was meant to find Tom under the stars. And then they see the riders off in the distance, and he asks what they are. And then
Yeah.
Tom says he's not the first East-Star that he's seen. And now there's a Dark Wizard, and he controls most of Rune. So that's the reveal that the Dark Wizard is
Isn't a star.
not just
Yeah,
he's not just some human sorcerer. He's an Astari.
that's right. Yeah. So yeah, we get a lot of well, not one big reveal, and a couple smaller reveals, which is we now think that the big reveal that the Dark Wizard is an Astari, which makes him on par with Gandalf and one of the 5 sent. And we've only ever seen on screen before 3, and we don't know if we are seeing the same one of those same 3 we've already seen, like Gandalf, or if we're seeing one of the 2 blue wizards that are barely mentioned originally, and then Tolkien wrote some more stuff later on to give them a bit more history and lore and background. But that's the big reveal. We get some smaller reveals, which is that like we do now believe that Gandalf or whoever this stranger wizard, our protagonist wizard, happens to be, it does seem like they were sent to learn from Tom Bombadil, which does give Tom Bombadil some purpose, in terms of maybe not his sole purpose, but it does give his character something that his previous iterations, even in Tolkien's work, were lacking, which is his interactions with other characters always seem to be him accidentally saving them, which is kind of funny and fun, but this gives him more of like an actual like creative purpose. Like he was put on Middle Earth for a reason, and part of it might be to help teach Astari or other beings how to use their powers here, or what their powers are, and not that kind of thing. So it does give him a little bit more, which I have to give credit to these writers for doing. that's a tough one to do. I would have left him out. So I do commend them for attempting to bring this character some more realism and sense of proper lore and background. And then we get a few nods like the old man Willow, or old man Ironwood in this case. So a lot of small things happening there, and then the big reveals, which is a great scene. That's why I think this episode people should watch it, even if they've been having issues with the show in general. So I guess the scene just ends with me still kind of questioning though, like why will Tom not get more involved? And it's not the end of the world for me. Like, I'm fine with him being in this universe and in particular this show without him getting more involved. It's just a small thing that people do question it, and I don't have a good answer, and that bugs me. Like, I wish I could help them out with that. I wish I could help myself out with that. But I just have to kind of leave it at that. Like, it's just not his purpose, and there's more to his character than meets the eye, and he's supposed to be a bit more hands-off than the Istari, who are also supposed to be a bit hands-off, but they do interact more with the shaping of the geopolitical situation on Middle-earth.
Yeah. So back with Elrond. It's
Yes.
nighttime in the forest, and they're being watched. So there's this. Oh, so they're in the Barrow Downs. That they call it Tish Gorthas. Is that right? Or Gothad?
I forget exactly what it said. Yeah.
But anyways, the Barrow Downs.
Yeah. We're in the Barrow Downs. Here's another situation. I've already mentioned this. Again, I think you don't need to say what this stuff is. People will know. And it's going to come into play in a bit when these characters talk about it. I think this scene is fantastic, except for a few moments. I know, lore-wise, it doesn't make any sense, because the kingdom that is supposed to come into existence and then eventually curse the Witch King is eventually supposed to curse.
That's true.
But it doesn't matter to me.
So these are supposed to be like Númenórean kings of Arnor.
That were cursed by the Witch King and put here to...
And this kingdom doesn't even exist yet. All the Númenóreans are still in Númenor.
Right.
So.
I'm fine. I don't care that much. Like, in this show in particular...
Actually, I kind of... Like, it's kind of bad. It doesn't make any sense.
This is the first time you've ever been like, well, alright, that's it. This is too far. The Barrow Downs did it. The Barrow Downs ended the streak of... I'm fine with it. Now this is no good.
This doesn't make any sense.
No,
I mean,
it doesn't.
maybe there's another kingdom there that I don't know.
So this is why. What if they didn't say it was the Barrow Downs? Okay,
Yeah.
Hear me out. Let's follow this train of thought. So they don't say. So here they actually say the quote is known to men as the Barrow Downs. Well, that shouldn't be because they don't exist yet. So what if instead they didn't say what they were? They just say these must be some old elvish tombs or old tombs.
Just say it's some graveyard, whatever.
Right, and we as book readers, well, eventual book readers.
It doesn't need to be the Barrow Downs. It could be something kind of like the Barrow Downs.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly. You're right on the same wavelength as me. That's exactly what I'm going for. And now you get the best of both worlds. You get an accurate representation of what a Barrow Downs interaction would be like. Except it's not called Barrow Downs because that doesn't exist yet. Perfect. That's exactly what I think they should have done, which is why they need to stop having things happen like this, where they walk into a room and go, "We are in the Barrow Downs," or we walk into a room and go, "I'm Tom Bombadil." No, that's not how people interact. Like, just leave it with a little bit of space for people to like absorb it. Okay, so that's my first problem with this scene. The rest of the scene, for the most part, plays out very well for me. So they're in this creepy, like these old tombs, and you see like these eyes peering out. It's super, super scary, super creepy, and
They hear spooky voices, glowing eyes.
Yep.
And they find the dead messengers.
Yep.
From before.
So now, okay. So remember before you said it was just a coinkydink that that the messengers died. So now we have an explanation and it wasn't orcs like I thought. So we're both wrong. it was Sauron. So Sauron came and awoken these, and this is why it shouldn't be the Baronowns either. This could have just been a graveyard for like dead elves or something, or dead whatever. And then Sauron comes, spreads some dark magic, and they wake up. And it's very similar to the Baronowns, but it's different. I think that's a perfect way to do
And I
this.
mean, yeah, it's worrisome because like, what if they want to do another show later following the Witch King, and like already did the Barrow Downs? So.
All right, let me just say, I mean, we'll have to say this eventually in a separate video as well, so it doesn't get lost here. But if you do another show, it's not gonna reference this show. This show is all over the place when it comes to like.
So you're gonna have to create like a separate fan fiction timeline for each separate.
I think what you do is you
like you can't have like an Amazon Tolkien universe and then
Well, Well, no. I think you can have multiple companies making the shows, but this particular show, Rings of Power, is going to be like the most recent Star Wars trilogy. It needs to somehow be taken away and left in its own.
It's so bad.
Like left on its own, and then pick up from where we left off, and just basically make your own show, which has its own version of how the rings are made, of how Galadriel interacts with Sauron initially, all that stuff. Because this show cannot be how it happens, and then we go forward from here. It doesn't make any sense. Like already, I make jokes all the time.
Because they could. I
about
mean, yes, because it's. Because that actually, like, getting into the Witch King stuff would actually be a good, like, long-term vision.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
That-
let's say the Barrow
Of all
Downs
the characters, that's a character I would actually be interested in knowing more about from a visual perspective. Like I'm not too keen. I'm gonna watch it, and I'm really excited about the hunt for Gollum because of who's involved. But I've never, that part of Gollum's journey doesn't interest me as much as a lot of other things. So I would be really interested in like the Witch King. I'd be really interested in some of like the Gondor previous, like the kings between like Isildur and say like like when we come in with the whole like Boromir and Faramir and their father. I would be interested in having a show between that time period where we get to see Gondor on like the decline from its heyday and see what that's like. Or heck, even even some of the ones we joke about, I think they would be still good shows if you did put them in a bit more of a serious tone, like a more young Aragorn and his journey, Gimli, Legolas, and what they do afterwards. I think those would be fun shows, but give them more of a serious, like you and I joke about it, but give it a serious,
So,
serious
what
purpose.
are they proposing that this was an ancient kingdom of men before the Númenóreans even came there?
Yeah, because they even mention it. The men call it the Barrow Downs. Like that's
'Cause
the
they're
line.
like, this is where they buried a bunch of kings.
Yeah,
But like,
but there are no kings here.
not yet. No.
Not yet.
As
So,
far as I know.
No, they're all in the south.
Correct us down below for.
Oh
a
yeah,
while.
yeah. If you know more than we do about like the actual Tolkien lore, you can throw it down below. Again,
But this seems like superficially, this seems like a problem.
Yeah.
To me, anyway.
And again, we are more interested in the visual storytelling of Middle Earth. So like Peter Jackson and.
But
the
I mean,
animated
you
movies.
can save some for later. You know, let's have a Witch King show. Let's.
Yep. No, I agree. I think a Witch King show would be great. It just cannot be based on the timeline of this show because it makes no sense. But yeah, so
Yeah, but if Amazon makes the Witch King show,
I
then
mean-
that's kind of silly. Like,
yeah,
They're
if
gonna-
Amazon does, where it'll be. I mean,
I mean, they could do it like Marvel comic book style, like where like they'll tell the whole story and then they'll just reset it back to the beginning.
oh, true, they could do that. Yeah,
But
Yeah.
that's also kind of silly.
I think it's the best if they're gonna do it so that everything is supposed to be in sequence and they screw one aspect up. It's almost their only way out. Otherwise, they have to basically say, "Don't. That's no longer canon in our little multiverse thing. Yeah. So like in this scene here, so with the Barrow Downs in particular, and the Barrow Whites.
So it ends up becoming like a double fan fiction.
I know. We're
It's
getting
already
in trouble
fan
here. Like,
fiction, and now it's a double fan fiction.
we're the last bastion trying to hold this show to some enjoyment, and even now we're starting to slip because we're getting to a point where we start to realize there's no way to, like, this show is full fan fiction. It doesn't make any sense. We're just watching some fun silliness. Now, I've argued in the past, and I still maintain this, that you could theoretically, if we actually end up seeing that this show is actually someone's written account, similar to how I've argued that you can watch the Hobbit movies and be okay with the lore breaking in that one as well, because it's simply a hobbit writing down what they think happened, and they're sometimes exaggerating and they're sometimes wrong. This show doesn't seem to be in that same style though, so it's hard for me to make that connection. Here it does seem like we're watching exactly what unfolded, and it's wrong. Like, it's flat out wrong. And they have no way of saying, oh, the storyteller didn't know the exact... No, it's straight up wrong. This is... The timing of all this is messed. Now, in particular with the Barrow Whites here, I have one other issue, and that is when we figure out how to defeat them. Because we don't have Tom Bombadil like we did before. We had Tom Bombadil when it was the hobbits from the... Like Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. And they were saved by Tom. Here, these elves have to deal with it themselves, and so they've... Elrond... okay. So, okay, we've already described how the fact that this is the Barrow Downs is a problem. Alright, now it's a problem because now Elrond knows how to kill them, because he's remembering some old story that some old lore, that if you kill a ghost skeleton thing with its own blade, it kills it.
That it was sprayed away. Yeah.
Now, okay. Even if I grant Elrond that he knows this fact, now the problem is the speed at which this happens in the show. So originally, one other party gets taken, and they have no recourse. It just gets taken and killed. And then Elrond's like, okay, we gotta kill them with their own blades. And I mean, this looks cool, I will say. I think they did a great job on the CGI here. Like, I think the skeletons are pretty good. So it looks amazing. But so Elrond says we need to kill them with their own blades, and then instantly, everyone just has these blades. So like, they went into these tombs untouched, grabbed the swords and spears that they needed, and come out and have these weapons. I just feel like it's harder than that. Maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like it should be a little bit harder to get the blades than what we see here. So,
Yeah.
up until this point, I like the visuals. I don't like that's the Barrow Downs, but I like the visuals. And then as soon as we have the solution, problem solved. I think the solution, which they can know, I'm even fine. I'll grant them that. I don't love how they know it. I'll grant them that. I think what should have happened was one of the swords happens to be in the tomb that one of them gets pulled into, and he grabs it and cuts him with it, and that's how he figures it out.
Yeah, they could have done that,
They could have done. I know. I'm not even saying anything that they couldn't do.
Because they pulled the one guy in. They should have just had the camera follow him.
Yeah, or it could have been look, they want to do Galadriel, let her do it. She gets pulled in, and then she loses her sword, and then she gets pulled in, and she's in this like dark chasm, and there's ghosts everywhere, and she grabs the only thing she can find, and it's this magical sword, and she cuts a bunch of them, and then she gets out, and she's like, you have to use the blades they were buried with, and then they run in and grab blades and come out and fight. They could have done it. They did.
Or they could have had Elrond do that. He can be like, I remember this.
Sure, you can have Elrond do it. Like, I just think that's a better way to do it. And then the next problem is we need to figure out how to get into these tombs, because remember, they had to pull apart one of these tombs to get in.
Or just have her like repel them with the ring or something. Like she has control over them.
Or that. I mean, yeah, we
way.
forget she's got a magic ring. So I guess there's other ways I would have done the solution to this fight. But up until this moment, I loved every aspect of the visuals of this. Well done. Yeah, the ghostly appearance of it, the fact that they're kind of like floating and like hanging in the air. I love that. It's really well done, really creepy. So I guess, you know, good job there. Oh yeah, by the way, they say that these men have been buried for thousands of years.
So
what is this, like a first age kingdom?
yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to know what was there in the first age.
Yeah, you know what,
Yeah.
maybe we'll do a deep dive. I don't normally like doing this, but we'll do a deep dive into like the Tolkien lore of that exact area during the first age to figure out if there's a solution that we could come up with to make this work. Now, remember, we only have the appendices to work with, so we might have to go against the legal side of things and dig
I
in.
mean, I guess they can just make it up, but maybe Amazon will come up with
Yeah.
a story like, oh yeah, there was a kingdom there already,
Yeah.
and I don't know. But these guys, I don't know.
Yeah, so we can do that. We'll do a separate video on that where we kind of go a little deeper into this, because this episode, while it has a lot of cool things, breaks a lot of lore as well, and so we can kind of see both sides of it. But I mean, that's all I had for the Barrow Downs, unless you had more to talk about there.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the elves died.
One of the elves died, and I think again, this is one of the other reasons watch this particular episode. It's got the Barrow Wights. Even though lore breaking, I think it's cool visuals, and it's one of the things that people have argued should have been in the original trilogy. I'm actually okay if Peter Jackson had included it. I don't know how you save the hobbits without Tom Bombadil, which is why he didn't include it, I think. Because it's a very cool little subplot where they get
Right.
the daggers.
I guess I've never really understood what a Barrow Wight even was.
Right.
So
So now we see that
now-
they're like a
now
skeleton
I know.
ghosty thing that they're a bit more physical than the ghosts that we see, the ghost soldiers we see in the Return of the King. Like these ones, you can actually like cut them and they fall over for a bit and then they come back. So they're almost more like early like NES, Super Nintendo skeletons in video games, where like you hit them and they kind of crumble and then they come back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a cool scene for people to see who are hardcore fans, because you get to see that visual representation. And we're going to get another cool representation coming up real soon. But once we cut back to Theo, who now has, like, Arondir, and he's got the whole town out looking for Theo.
Yep. And then they find, I guess they find the campsite. And the wild men left their axes behind.
And an axe to a wild man is like gold. Why do they always throw that line in? Like everything, apparently to a wild person, any little trinket they leave behind is like gold. Look, I agree. I don't think I don't think a person that is living in the wild would just abandon their only axe. I agree. I just don't like the line that it's like gold all the time.
I mean, it makes it seem like these wild men have been wild men for like years.
Yep.
But we're talking like maybe a month tops.
No, exactly. To the second point I had. Yeah, you literally, again, same wavelength. That's exactly right. These are not wild men.
I mean tops. It could be like it's more like a week.
These are literally your neighbors that have been like touched by Adar. They're not to a wild man. This is like gold. What are you talking about? The guy is simply out here like making camp for Adar. He's not. They're not just by themselves. Like it doesn't make any sense. Also, why are they allowed to stray so far from their orc encampments when they're humans? Like the orcs don't trust them, and the orcs their whole point is to do things for the orcs. They're almost like slaves. These people are just free to roam the forest.
Yeah.
Why are anyone still with Adar? It doesn't make sense. Like this should have been an orc encampment.
Yeah, I get my brand, and then I just like flee to the
Right. If I were
nearest
Adar, I wouldn't let.
human settlement.
Yeah, I wouldn't let humans be like the first people into a woods to like set the baseline camp. No, that they would be coming along like carrying the supplies, because
Yeah,
it's orcs that we're doing this for.
basically use them as slaves, or
Right.
like explain the manipulation better. Like, how are they being manipulated?
Right. Because like, some of them ran off and some didn't, I assume.
Because I mean, there are wild men in the trilogy, the original trilogy, but
Yep.
it's just kind of. But this doesn't quite follow, unless they're already wild. I don't know.
No, but like these ones were these ones were like asking about the Adar brand. So you're right.
Yeah.
Unless they were wild initially, branded by Adar, and then let to be wild again. I don't.
Like maybe Adar like somehow said like, yeah, oh, you're wild men, and you're gonna be way better under me than you were before.
Yeah, I just don't understand like. Yeah, I just don't understand why we would let our like the group of people that we want to be basically just carrying our supplies and doing like the grunt labor. Why would we let them go so far into the forest on their own? So yeah, we just clearly don't understand what's going on with the situation with Adar.
Then we see Isildur's like concerned and feels bad. It's like, oh, first my mother, now Theo. Everyone around me, I kill them.
Yeah.
And Arandir reassures him, says, Theo's been through worse, he's gonna be okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I really don't know if he believes it, because like, I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Now, okay, so I was fine with that scene to some degree. I had a problem with the line about the axe, and then you brought up the wild men not being wild. So now we have a town meeting.
Well, no, there's this body. They find this hand
true.
holding a torch, and it's a dismembered hand holding a torch. And then they find his body, and it's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
And so yeah, now it's the next day of the meeting. Yeah.
Now it's a town meeting, and it's like we've gotta go find Theo. Now, am I?
They're getting more provisions. Yeah.
Am I like? Is it okay? I'm willing to say this town is gonna help Theo because of his mom, maybe. But like this town has other like I'm sure people go missing all the time from this town. They're right near like an orc encampment and like wild people living in the forest. They're now all gonna band together and go search the scary woods for Theo.
But I guess they don't though. Like when we look, it's just a Arandir and a Isildur.
No, I know, because it doesn't like I think what's her name says like we should go north, and then people are like, where should we go? And then yeah, I think they all kind of split up and like go searching for Theo.
But then Arandir knows this wound on her neck, and it's a self-burn to hide the Adar mark.
Yeah.
I
mean, okay, this is actually kind of a fun scene, I guess, because so I'm confused based on what happens later on, but in this particular scene, I think it seems like she doesn't want to be found out that she is marked by Adar and is doing his bidding.
Yeah, they are. So the humans already have a culture of like, no, you've been branded, you're an outsider, you're tainted forever. But they don't take into account like, hey, like, I need to do what I need to do.
Right. So that's why, like, So I'm struggling with it a bit.
Like maybe there's just in this universe like there's something really serious about oaths, and like
which I agree. Game of Thrones has it too, so I'm kind of fine with it.
So like you made this oath, like even if you break it, like you're cursed, like some sort of superstition about like you can't just lie to survive. If you take that oath, it's serious. And,
sure, but I wouldn't. So they treat them as if they're still working for Adar, whereas even if I think what you're saying is how it is true, they should almost just pity them and think of them as like cursed, weak people. Instead, they almost treat them like the enemy, and I don't quite get that. And that's where I kind of get confused, because it almost, so she's clearly hiding this. She's clearly hiding it, so there's no doubt there. But then she attacks Arondir, throws a pot in his face, tries to run away, and then he grabs her and like rips it up, and is like, look, she removed the branding of Adar. We would have found it if she wasn't with you, or something like that. And I'm just like, is she working for him or not, though? Like that, we still don't know that aspect.